Hi, my name is Mike Wright. I am the president and CEO of ODL Orthodontic Laboratory, and we are here with our fourth installment of the ORG expert interviews here. I'm very excited to bring on a really good friend of mine, Stas Balanevsky. He is one of the principals of Stitch, which really is an organization that helps companies grow. So I'm super excited. We're going to talk about business today. We're going to talk about culture. We're going to talk about all the nuts and bolts that really make a company thrive. So I want to welcome you, Stas. Thank you. Great to have you here.
Thank you so much for having me. Appreciate the intro and the opportunity.
Awesome. So we'll do a quick intro here, and then we'll jump into some questions and we'll dive right in. So Stas is an entrepreneur with more than 30 years of experience in sales, marketing, business development, and business management. Stas has worked in a wide range of industries, including medical devices, sporting goods, digital media, retail and e-commerce, and international finance. From 94 to 2007, Stas was the vice president and co-founder of V&S Corporation, an international healthcare equipment and supply integration business focused on creating, financing, and delivering healthcare projects in the developing world. Following the dissolution of V&S, Stas held EVP and GM positions in digital marketing companies that focused on digital and performance marketing campaigns. And his primary responsibilities included business development, complex negotiations, and business management. And again, he's currently the principal at Stitch and a professional EOS implementer. Wow, that is a mouthful. You have you got quite the career going on, which is awesome. I'm just going to make this conversation go really well. So I guess I want to start with an introduction for you. You know, you can certainly have the mic here. Tell me about Stitch.
Yeah, so Stitch exists to help companies grow. So we are a bunch of entrepreneurs that have gotten together and have created this sort of amalgam of different organizations that do different things and do them really well. So we have Stitch Finance, which is a fractional chief financial officer business. We have Stitch Talent, which helps with HR and development. We have Stitch Assist, which is virtual assistants. We have Stitch Creative, which is creative services. Stitch Digital, which is CRM and chief marketing officer. We have Stitch Traction, which is the EOS practice, which is sort of my primary responsibility in addition to some Stitch Digital work. So we have Stitch Sales, et cetera, et cetera. So we sort of keep adding these entrepreneurs that exist to help companies grow. So everything runs on the EOS model, and our 10-year target is $1 billion of client-side revenue growth. Huge. So by 2030, we will have put $1 billion on our $1 billion wall of companies that have grown. I hope you'll contribute at least 200 million of that. So we only need 800 million more.
There you go. You're making it easy. So you've mentioned EOS a couple times. So why don't you talk about EOS a little bit? So we participate in this EOS, which with Stas here, but just to get a little background of what you're talking about, what that is.
Absolutely. So EOS is the entrepreneurial operating system. It's a complete set of simple concepts, practical tools. It's helped thousands of companies. And what it does is and you're living it right now, Mike, it helps you get three things, right? It helps you get vision, which is getting everybody in your organization 100% on the same page with where you're going, how you're going to get there. Traction, which is instilling focus, discipline, and accountability throughout the organization so that everyone can actually execute on the vision and actually get there. The founder of EOS always says vision without traction is hallucination. You can have all the good ideas in the world, but if you can't actually make them happen, it's useless. And then healthy, which is really helping your leadership team become more cohesive, functional, healthy leadership team, having these open and honest conversations that you live every week.
Yes, and we'll get into EOS and ODL, in a little bit here, but I will say that I remember sitting down with you. We were at a bar, and I was like, Stas, we're growing. It's insane. It is crazy, and I have no idea what I'm doing. And you said, let's do EOS, and I said, all right, let's try this out. And it's been a game changer with how we do things. Things are they're just more steady, and we're able to manage much bigger projects, and we have a lot more discipline. And the leadership team right now is stellar. And what's great about that is EOS here gives us a framework to be able to do that. So it's been quite the journey, especially jumping into a system like this.
That's awesome. That's so great to hear. And you do have a rock star leadership team, and you picked it right, you built it right. Everyone's rowing the boat in the same direction. It's a pleasure to be in session with the team.
Yeah, and we certainly have a lot of fun doing it. And so as we have this conversation, we'll get into, especially with this next question, business, startup, family business, any type of business, even in the lab industry, it gets crazy. And sometimes you just want to bury your head in the sand, and the business just starts to take control of you, and you don't know what to do because the passion that you once had now is the bane of your existence. And that's the spark that people lose. And it's unfortunate because this is an industry that's very close knit. People love this industry, but it burns you out so quickly. But I guess you could probably say that about any industry as well.
It does. And
yeah.
I think what we found is it's because people get dragged into the tactical, right? There's just no time, no room to pause, to be strategic. You're putting out fires. Right. I had a mentor walk up to me one day, and my office sat at the end of the hallway right near his office. They had this glass walled office, and a brilliant guy. And he walked up to me once and sat on the corner of my desk and said, "So you want to be a fireman when you grow up?" And I was, fresh out of school. I was 22 years old. And I said, "No." He said, "I'm watching you put out fires all day, every day." He said, "Why don't you try to figure out how to prevent those fires instead of just putting them out?"
Absolutely. And it's so hard to do.
Yeah. And I was 22, a couple years ago. So, and it's resonated for me because if you can prevent it, right? If you can predict, you do a lot better.
Right. Absolutely. And it's the people that surround you. So let's jump into that question. So as lab owners, and basically any business owner, there's this ever evolving challenge of working in the business versus working on the business. Mm-hmm. Can you speak a bit about like how an owner can change from the business running the owner to the owner running the business? And then the benefits of that.
Absolutely. I mean, there's an evolution that happens in any entrepreneurial journey, right? You start off as the entrepreneurial doer, right? You have a problem, you find a solution, you have an idea, you give birth to it, and you wear all 17 hats of the business. And you're worried about the doing because it's all you, and it's this owner-centric sort of, I get it all done. And then people show up because you can't do it alone. Right. And as people show up, you start to see that you really need to shift to being an entrepreneurial thinker versus an entrepreneurial doer. And instead of thinking about what, you have to start thinking about the who. Who's going to do what? What sort of a structure do I need to really grow the business? And it's at that point of inflection that, 2/3 or more of companies fail because people can't get out of their own way. They're putting out fires and they're living in the tactical world, and they're not protecting their strategic time.
Right. Right. I just read something. It was the CEO of Vimeo, and she's a very young individual in her mid-30s, and she said it was a tough transition. She had to become. She was a doer and had to transition into an enabler. And what she meant by that is that as the CEO, she needed to help people. She needed to enable people to do their job well, because her first inclination is, I'm just going to jump on the line. I'm going to do it. But she needs others to help her to run this enormous company. And it wasn't until she realized that the company really started to jive, because her goal is to be able to help people grow as opposed to just doing it for them, because the company just will stay stable at that point or go backwards.
Yeah, 100%. You're certainly not going to grow. And if market conditions change and your approach doesn't change and you're not ready for growth and you're not robust enough, they're going to eat your lunch.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, so that's critical. So one of the big initial challenges for ODL when managing the growth, as we're talking about, was establishing the vision. Like, where is this company going? So can you describe what the vision, core values, and core focus are, and why these three these three things are critical to building them and then executing them.
Yeah, absolutely. So that's your foundation, right? So the vision part of it, creating that 10-year target, that big, hairy, audacious goal, whatever you want to call it, that's really telling people where you want to go, really getting crystal clear on where it is you want to get to. Like for us, $1 billion in client side revenue growth. Boom, we know it. So now it defines us. Everything we do to get to that growth. When we ask ourselves, I've got 43 different things to do. Okay, which of these 43 is going to help one of my clients achieve revenue growth? Right? It becomes very simple. Then the core values are really what define our people. Like, what is a Stitch person? Like, I can read you our core values. I have them.
You have them? Go for it.
Okay, we are help first. We always add value, contribute beyond what's expected. We start and end. So we start with the end in mind, see the big picture in the moment enough to get results, right? We're fearless. We enter the danger, we speak up, we speak our mind, we have courageous communication. We are open-minded. So we're constantly learning, growing, trying to improve, stay open to new ideas, thinking, and insights. No reptiles. So stay calm, work together, choose your attitude, focus on the problem, not the person, and be fun. Laugh, joke, smile, get a little silly. So we have those 6 core values, and we hire, fire, reward, recognize people based on those core values. If you do not absolutely positively exhibit at least 4 of those core values all the time, and 2 of them at least some of the time, you're not one of our people. Not a bad person, just not one of our people. And we're not going to work with you.
Yeah, the temptation too is you set your core values and you don't stick to them because of maybe short-term economic gain or the headache that might come with letting a person go. It's critical to be able to maintain this, because once you start to go the other direction and sweep them under the rug a little bit, that's when things start to change, for the worse. So there's a lot of discipline, like these core values that we're talking about, they're very deliberate. And that's what I love about what you were talking about. This is what Stitch is. This is what we do. These are Stitch folks, and this is all we want to work with. And we have that choice. And I think for all the lab owners out there, I think it's so critical to be able to say, here's our vision, here's where we're going, but here's the foundation, here's the core values of this company. And do you fit that? And then do you start to look at your folks based on those values too, and have these honest conversations with them about whether or not they're living up to them or not, and then having those hard conversations about them.
And the key is living it. You and I are both parents, and I've been at this for 30 years. I've been a parent for 21 of them. Boy, am I a different person.
Yeah.
Because I know that what I say means a lot less, and what I do means a lot more, which is why you remember when we set your core values, we stress tested them against the team. Because if we don't walk that talk, then those aren't our core values.
Right.
Right? We need to live those every day. We need to call out those core value fits and those displays of core value behavior, so that the entire organization sees that, wow, not only do these guys walk that talk, but they really, truly value those core values.
Can you talk a little bit about like the difference between those values that are the pay to play values? Because this was always helpful for me, versus like real core values. You you have some other companies and you see what are their core values, and it's integrity, it's courage, and it's all the things that we've heard 100 times, or all the things that we call like pay to play. Can you just speak a little bit about that? Because I always found that fascinating.
Yeah, so I forget whose construct that is, but basically three types of core values, right? There's the table stakes, pay to play core values. There's the actual core values, and there's the aspirational core values, right? So the pay to play, whenever anyone in the session room says to me, "Ooh, honesty is a core value," and I say, "Can dishonest people work at your company?" They say, "Well, no." Those are table stakes. right? Everybody has to be honest. If you're dishonest, you're out. That's not one of these are our people. This is like, you have to pay that cover charge to walk in the door. And then the flip side are those aspirational core values, right? Like, we're best in the world. Now, yes, ODL is the best in the world at something, but that's not really a core value. Striving to be 1% better with everything you do, that's a core value at ODL. That's what you do. Because I watch it. I watch your team look at every single thing and think, if I can make this thing 1% better, that would be awesome. Right?
Yeah, very different. Look for the 1% wins. It's certainly one of our core values. And it's very different than integrity. Well, you have to have it. You're not going to fit any of the core values regardless if you don't have the pay to play values.
Well, that's the whole thing, right? Because when we test those core values, we're not looking for everybody to be absolutely identical, which is why I said with us, with our 6 core values, you need to exhibit 4 of them all the time and 2 of them sometimes. If integrity was one of those values, like, do we really want somebody that exhibits integrity some of the time?
Good point.
No.
Right.
Like, that's an absolute non-starter for us. If they don't have it, they're not in the door, get out.
Right. Right. And that's why I think it's critical that we start to establish the core values, because every time that we talk about our folks, core values is always coming up now. And that's how we're starting to do performance reviews. That's how that is how we're starting to transition to run ODL, is based on this foundation, which has made such a big difference. And I think it sets us up, for what we call, we have our 1-year goals, our 3-year picture, and our 10-year target. So I kind of want to segue a little bit into that and say, all right, so what are we looking at here when we set these targets? Because this is something you've taught me. Because 10 years looks so far away, but we always underestimate what we can do in 10 years. 1 year is like, hey, that's right down the street, and we always over goal ourselves, and maybe we have 25 goals and we hit 2 of them. So we do the opposite. So tell me a little bit about how that how this timing works and why it's helpful.
Sure. So, and good on you for the nomenclature, because that's very, very important, right? It's a 10-year target, a 3-year picture, and a 1-year plan. Right? You can't have a 10-year plan. You have no idea what's going to happen. But I always say it gives you a compass heading. So if we say that this bus is going north, and we tell everybody that the bus is going north, anyone that wants to go south should get off the bus or get realigned. So that's a quick course filter of anyone that's not aligned with our 10-year target, they're off the bus, right? They will self-select off. The 3-year picture is where you sort of close your eyes, and in your mind's eye, you connect where you are today to where you want to be. And you sort of craft what you look like in 3 years, just over 1,000 days, right? It's pretty quick. And you start to craft what that looks like: how much revenue, how much profit, how many people, what products, how many offices, how many factories, right? All that sort of stuff. And then you connect those dots, right, from where you are to your 3-year picture to your 1-year plan. And you say, what are the things that we need to do this year to get us closer to our 3-year picture, which obviously sits in line with our 10-year target.
Right.
So when you start to talk about those things that bring you east or west, just beating the compass analogy to death, people can, around the leadership table can say, that's east. We all agreed we're going north, right? So you start to narrow that whole thing down to, you've got people going north, you've got people going north, northeast, north, northwest, but the prevailing compass heading is still north towards our 10-year target.
Right.
And then you chop that further.
It makes life a lot easier when you start to establish it. Even if it's so far away, at least you're going in the right direction. And that's still helpful for us. You mentioned leadership team, that the leadership team needs to be going in the same direction. We need to be rowing in that same direction. So how do you know your leadership team is solid? And essentially, like, what is the canary in the coal mine when it comes to your leadership team?
That's a great and difficult question to answer.
Yes.
So when we analyze our people, we use a tool called the People Analyzer. And it's a combination of two things. One, core values fit. So of your core values, do these people exhibit the core values? So that tells us, are they the right people? Then we talk about the right seat. So you create an accountability chart, not an org chart. And in your accountability chart, you talk about those things that people are accountable for. And then the test is, do they get that seat? Do they want that seat? Do they have the capacity to do that? Right? So for instance, the example that I always throw at people and they always chuckle is, okay, I desperately want to be a male model. I get it. I get what it takes. I get to fly to Paris and New York. I want it more than anything. We have a bit of a capacity issue because I'm like kind of not attractive. So I can't actually do the job, which is why I shouldn't be in the male model seat, right? So, you know, if you have somebody that's in the sales seat, but they're hopelessly shy, that's not, you know, they're not able to do that. Or you have somebody that has to sit in your finance seat, but they don't have a background in accounting or finance. They don't get it. They don't get what it takes because they just don't have the knowledge and the expertise, right? Or people that you find in a seat that just sort of got there through inertia. And now they find themselves, I always see this actually in sales where the best salesperson gets promoted to sales manager. That guy does not want that seat. Bad at it, really bad at it. Because all they do, and this is a gross generalization, and I'm sorry for that, but you know, a lot of those unbelievable salespeople are unbelievably bad at managing people. Mm-hmm. And when they try to manage in a way that makes those people emulate them, and they take all the humanity out of it. Right?
We see that so many times where, and that's in every industry or at any kind of trade work, where you take a really good technician, and then it's a huge challenge to kind of migrate them into a management role. And it can be done. It's just a very difficult way to do it. And we always, you know, we talk about this all the time, right person, right seat. You know, is the person, we're on the bus, is the person, you know, in the right seat? We're already on the wrong bus even. And that's why it's so important to look at that, because if you don't analyze it that way, at least what I found, people just aren't happy, because if they don't want it, you talk about GWC, get it, want, have the capacity to do it. If there's folks out there that don't want it even, they're not only going to make themselves miserable, but the folks around them as well can see that. And it lends itself to a pretty tough situation, but they do need strong managers and leadership to at least see that's happening and work with them or coach them or manage the situation, or else you start to see some of that breed throughout the whole, you know, through the whole company.
Absolutely. You know, management and leadership they're discrete skills, right? I mean, just being a really great producer doesn't make me a great manager. Sometimes quite the opposite.
Right.
Where sometimes you have people that are fantastic managers, but aren't particularly good at the doing. That's fine. You know, like I do a lot of skiing, right? And I'm a decent race coach. Am I the fastest guy on the hill? Absolutely not. But I can coach to it, just because that's, you know, I can see it. I can't do it, but I can certainly see it.
Right. Right. That's the difference. You know, that's the being able to enable folks to be their best selves and bring them into a place they never knew that they could do it. And that is where a great manager, a great leadership team comes in. And maybe that's what we're looking for. You know, maybe that's what every leadership team needs is focusing not so much on themselves, obviously, but making sure that the team is growing. Because if the finish line is 100 yards away, you're not going to do it by yourself. Your team needs to carry you across that finish line. It's the only way to really do it. So for those, you know, the majority of laboratories in the US, they're small, but they're starting to grow very rapidly. So for labs that are tiny, but they're looking to hire more people, and they're getting to the point where they need to start building some more bench strength in the company. So they're looking at managers, they're looking at leadership. How do you put a leadership team together? So for somebody that's just watching, looking to say like, yes, I love that idea, I need some help, what do I do?
Well, you need to look inside, right? You need to look at the people that you have, and you need to figure out what they're capable of, right? What they can do. We always look at a very simple accountability chart of sort of marketing and sales, operations, and finance, which is, that get the work, do the work, get paid for the work, right? Above that, we always put an integrator, whose job it is to hold people accountable and lead, manage, and get rid of blocks and barriers, right? They're there to make sure that that team is running really, really well and helping them with anything that they need help with. If you don't have that, if you don't have that whole continuum and you're that entrepreneurial doer, right, and you sit in every seat on the accountability chart, then what we start doing is we start thinking about what's the most important seat to fill, right? We create our core values. We make sure that we find people that fit those core values. And we make sure that they want, and have the capacity to do those 5 things that are the responsibility of that seat. That gets the owner out of that seat. It lets the owner elevate their game, where they're able to do the things that they're truly exceptional at, and fill the next seat and fill the next seat. And it becomes this iterative process where we just keep kind of expanding, but in a calculated way. Like with ODL, our accountability chart is looking 6, 12, 18 months into the future. Mm-hmm. You know who your next hire is going to be.
Right.
Because it's planned out.
Right.
So, you look at the revenue, you look at the growth, you look at the whole picture, and we do that usually during the focus day, which is the first EOS session, is we create that accountability chart. And I always find that, boy, you're sitting in 5 seats. So on the issues list, I say, Mike Wright, 5 seats. And then I hope that at the first quarterly, you're down to 3.
It's very typical too for owners to always wear all of the hats, especially when you're starting. That's the hardest part. We did the exercise with myself of the get up, want, and capacity to do it. And it didn't tell me all the things I can do. What it told me all the things is I can't do, or what I'm not good at, or I enjoy doing it, I just suck at it. So we need to find somebody who can do it. And so it's really important, I think, as we're looking at a leadership team to, what are the strengths that you have, but what are your weaknesses? And then start filling those gaps. Start surrounding yourself with people that are smarter than you are. And that's how you start to build it, because you start to grow with those who can fill those gaps.
And well, kudos to you for getting out of the way, right?
You have to get out of the way.
Yeah, well, we have so many entrepreneurial leaders that are like, well, my team's not capable of doing that. And I always say, have you really let them? Right? Have you really let them do that? Right? We create the accountability and then we respect it, both sides. The most powerful thing to do, and I know you do this all the time, when someone comes to you to fix their problem that is within their accountability, is you say, I don't know, what do you think?
Right. Monkey on the back. It's keep your monkeys on your back. I can't take them for you.
Yeah. Because then at the end of the day, people have offloaded accountability onto you, with that construct of the monkey, right? And now you're in the office at 7 o'clock at night, and you've got 45 monkeys running around. None of them are yours.
Exactly. And that's how it becomes a zoo, as we keep beating this to death here. But, that's exactly what it is. And it's really hard to do, because when you're looking at a business, you feel a sense of obligation that you have to handle everything. It almost feels, when you're in a leadership position, if I can't do this, there's almost a sense of guilt. It's like you have to let a lot of that go, and you have to trust other people to do it. And one of the lessons, at least I'm talking to the staff about all the time, or at least the leaders, is you have to allow your people to fail. Because if you don't allow them to fail, they're never going to grow. And if they don't grow, you're going to be stuck cleaning up all their crap all the time. So you have to allow them to grow. You have to let them get that bloody nose. You can certainly help pick them up, but teach them and watch them and guide them, but don't just do it for them. And it's such a hard thing to do.
And part of it, actually, especially with young people that I'm seeing right now, the paradigm shift that has to happen in their heads, I always say it's the difference between math and baseball. So if you bat 300 lifetime as a baseball player, you are in the Hall of Fame, right?
Right.
If you get anything under a 90 average in math, I'm not going to serve you dinner. You know what I mean?
Right.
So people have this, well, it has to be, I have to get honor roll. I have to get 90s. I have to get 90s. I have to get 90s. And then you show up in an environment with an informed leader that says, listen, failure's not failure. Failure is learning, right?
First attempt in learning.
That's right. They have to have that paradigm shift. And that's one of the biggest things that a leadership team does is they say, well, you were trying to be 1% better and the thing blew up on you. Okie dokie. Good on you. Let's try to be 1% better next time.
Right.
Right.
Learn from failure and move on.
Yeah. Now, if you're doing if you're blowing the thing up 3 times in a row exactly the same way, that's a different conversation. That's a GWC.
It's a different problem.
Right.
Exactly.
But it comes from the top where you're not in there micromanaging, and you're letting people fail and you're letting people grow. And through that failure and growth, you're getting to places where you would have never been able to get to.
Mm-hmm.
Different
Right.
worldview, different set of experiences, different focus. You would have never gotten there.
Well, I think that, as we're going through this process here with EOS, we've been looking for, as I was sitting down, like we had, having that beer together, and we needed some kind of management structure to help us. EOS has really helped us with that. But, kind of through your eyes, we've gone through a lot of growth. There's a lot of labs that are not in existence anymore. A lot of the work is pouring in, but, how do you think EOS has helped ODL? Kind of looking through the lens if this might be something for another laboratory, just kind of, what do you think? How do you think this has helped us in a way that might be helpful to others?
Well, it's allowed you to triage issues and opportunities very efficiently, right? When you have a problem, your whole leadership team attacks it from their competency, right?
Right.
You don't have any of those whack-a-mole kinds of conversations anymore. You don't have any meetings that are all about discussion, right? You solve. Right or wrong, you solve.
Right.
This is an opportunity. Should we get in this business? I don't know. Well, all right, let's know. Or let's know as much as we can to make a decision. Did I show you the Venn diagram, the hell Venn diagram?
I'm not sure.
Okay, so the Venn diagram is this. Imagine 2, intersecting circles.
Right.
And one of the circles says hell yes. The other circle says hell no.
Mm-hmm.
And the intersection is hell.
It is.
So if it's not hell yes, then it's hell no.
It's very true.
And you guys have gotten exceptional at looking at stuff, saying, you compartmentalize very, very well, right? This is a problem. We need to solve it right now. Let's solve it. It's solved to the best of our ability. It is solved. And here we go. And other stuff that you're like, not today is not today. And it's not even in your head.
Mm. Right. Because it becomes a distraction toward that 10-year target is really, really how it is. So when you're looking so far ahead, it's like, is this getting us any closer, or are we just spinning our wheels? Because I know it's only about an hour worth of conversation, but it's not doing anybody any good. So let's either make a decision on it, or we just don't talk about it any longer because it's not worth the time. So let's just move on to the next one.
Yeah. That's the whole thing, right? And you've also built a lot of efficiency into the system, right? So you don't have to talk to someone that then has to talk to someone, then has to talk to someone else and circle back with you, and 15 minutes here and 15 minutes there and blah, blah, blah. Before you're done, you have a 3-hour-long game of telephone and nobody is really crystal clear.
Right.
Whereas you have your leadership, your weekly leadership team meeting, your level 10, and you hold all your issues for that level 10 because all the decision makers are around the table. They're working on the business. And that's when you're going to be able to solve those problems. So you don't bother anybody unless there's a real fire.
Right. I think that's probably the most valuable thing that other lab owners can see is how many times do we get stuck in the whirlwind and we can't see what's in front of us. And sometimes you got to be a mile back to be able to actually see the whirlwind and what direction it's going in. You have no idea where you're going when you're in the middle of it. So being able to make those decisions outside of it is so important. And I think that takes us back to, working on the business as opposed to constantly working in the business, of how critical that is. So I have two more questions here, but I want to finish in, you've had a very long career, very respectable career too. You've taught me an enormous amount and it's helped me in so many different ways you don't even know. But through all of that, like, what are lessons that you've learned? What are the pearls that you could pass on to somebody?
Oh my gosh, I've been so lucky to work with people like you, to work with a lot of my other clients and my mentors. And, I've learned to slow down. I've learned a lot about EQ, right? Understanding what is happening in someone else's head, trying to figure that out. I used to be a bull in a china shop. And not that I've become meek or mild, but I'm much more empathetic. And I think that empathy is what gets you the connection. And that's what really helps you to learn, right? Stuff that I thought I knew, I was positive I knew. As I've evolved, I started to question if I knew it, and then became 100% certain that I know nothing. And then that's what opens you up to real growth, right? It's funny, just saying that is actually one of our core values, is we are always open to grow because we don't know everything. And, authenticity is another thing that, I don't have to be all things to all people. I am my best when I'm my authentic self. It's funny, one of our 3 uniques that we were talking about, we just went through our quarterly planning session for Stitch. And we worked on our marketing plan. We worked on our 3 uniques, and our 3rd unique is awesome. And it's all the horsepower with half the horse shit. And that's who we are. And if one of those 3 uniques doesn't resonate or offends you or whatever, like, that's cool. We wish you nothing but the best and success, but this is how we run, and we have clients like you to prove that it works, and it's just so much fun.
Right. No, I totally agree, because once the fun leaves and the business kind of like sucks the life out of you, you just got to rethink kind of what's going on, because there's so much to running a business and owning a business, because it crosses, there is no life balance, which everybody's trying to find when you own a business. No, everybody's trying to find that, that's like the big buzzword. And I'm thinking to myself, does that ever exist? But it doesn't, because life creeps into work and work creeps into life, and it's all one big happy family. But if it sucks the joy out of you, then, is it really worth it? And you have joy in what you're doing. And that's what brings that authentic Stas out, which is great. And I think that's what's helped me so much, is to really focus on what we do well, because that's what we find at the end of the day, the most joy in our jobs. So any advice to those who are growing and maintaining a business?
Trust yourself. Surround yourself with people smarter than you. Your gut is probably right, so trust it. I obviously would advocate for an operating system like EOS. A computer can't run all the software that it needs without an operating system. EOS is that for a business, right? It's sort of that platform that you bolt everything else onto, like your manufacturing processes and your finance process and your customer service process. You sort of bolt everything onto this skeleton of, this is how you have a meeting. These are our core values. This is our core focus. This is how we deal with each other. So I would certainly advocate for an operating system. I'm biased, of course, but pick one, whatever it is. just get an OS, work it, trust it, and just gather up people that align with your core values and are smarter than you.
Awesome.
We'll go very, very far.
All right, well, let's end on that note, on such a high note. So if somebody wanted to get a hold of you or to check out your website, how do they do that?
So you can go to stitch.solutions.
Okay.
And, you'll see all of our offerings, stitch.solutions/traction, or just go to eosworldwide.com and search for, go through the implementer search. There's 413 of us all over the world, and we're here to help you grow. So if I'm not the right fit, there's an EOS implementer that is, and go talk to him or her, because they are awesome people. It's a great community, and we all exist to help companies grow.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much for your time. This conversation is awesome. It's one of my favorite topics. And I hope that anyone who's watching can benefit from this. So again, thanks so much for joining me, Stas.
Hey, thanks a ton. I really appreciate the invite, and I look forward to seeing you at your next quarterly.